there, it's Sarah, and I am a long COVID sufferer. My journey so far has been 18 months, and today I am doing much better. And I've always said to myself that if and when I would get to this point where I would feel much better and I had my symptoms under control, that I would share this with the world, because there is so little help out there for long COVID sufferers, which is partly why the journey is so tough. Now, as a person, so I am professionally I'm a Pilates coach. I really help people with chronic pain normally. So I've always been interested in figuring things out, how things work. And long COVID is a very complicated, very multi-layered illness where a lot of body systems kind of are affected, and you have to see it as a holistic thing. You cannot isolate one issue. Now, in this video, I want to talk about the connection between long COVID, PMS and PMDD. I really want to reach people like you who are looking for answers. So if I may ask, please subscribe to the channel and like this video so that we can reach more people. Perfect. So briefly, you may look at me and think, well, you don't look very ill. No, I am much better today, but the 18-month journey has been tough, right? I suffered from chronic fatigue, long nodules, I had lung inflammation, my upper respiratory tract from here to here was often really like on fire, like really sort of burning almost. I had a sensitivity to cold, I was like cold all the time, cyst formation, hormonal imbalances which really flared up every month. So there were quite a lot of different symptoms, and it was really hard to figure out how, where to start. And I just couldn't control them. I controlled them for a bit and then they flared up again, and I just was so frustrating, which you probably can relate to. Now, PMS, PMDD and long COVID, there has not a lot been written about it, and that's why I'm doing this video, right? I feel us women are like, there's definitely a link. I have experienced it myself, but it's probably not fully acknowledged. And when I went to my GP to sort of say, hey, I've had long COVID, or I am still suffering from long COVID, and now I have these hormonal problems, almost like, I would say, very severe PMS, PMDD symptoms, they are probably linked. What can you do? And actually, the solution she gave was like, you can go on the coil to remove your hormonal fluctuations in a artificial way. You can go on to antidepressants if you can't cope, or you can talk to somebody. There was no option there to say, hey, that sounds like long COVID has created an imbalance in your hormones, and how can we, fix this imbalance? Which is basically the logical thing to think, you would think. But no, so I mean, initially, don't get me wrong, I was sort of looking into the coil. I thought, God, if anything can get me out of this situation, I'll take it. But actually, the success rate is 50%, and I just couldn't risk it because I wasn't particularly in a good place when I have experienced PMDD, and to have it worse than that, I wasn't sure where that would take me. So I've walked this path of like severe PMS symptoms, and it's a tough one, right? So people with PMDD out there, I have a lot of respect with how you deal with this. Not easy. So my symptoms would be, the mild ones would be, I would get very sore, sore chest 10 days before my menstruation would start. But the worst one was actually that at one point, and it's always hard, initially it was hard to pinpoint exactly when. It would be maybe sometimes just before my period, sometimes on the first day of my period, and then even 3 days after. So it would always happen that one night then my body would go into kind of a panic attack, but I was asleep, so this was totally unexpected. And then it wouldn't wear off, the effects of that, and sort of the... So my body would be in sort of a heightened state, almost like adrenaline rushing through it, and that wouldn't wear off initially for like 5 days, and that was just, it would also distort my emotions. People with PMDD will recognize this. It's a very weird experience and a very a mentally, tough one for sure, because you don't feel like yourself, and you also don't know exactly when it's going to hit you, which is really unpleasant. So I kind of recognized that this was a cyclical issue because I was monitoring it, and it happened every month. And it was always kind of related to my period. So you kind of go then, okay, right? Science approach, I can tell it's related to my hormonal fluctuations. But what's happening? So my initial assumption there was that maybe the stress from long COVID and lockdown had knocked my hormones out of balance. That was my initial presumption, which was proven wrong after. Well, it probably was a contributing factor, but that wasn't the main reason. So I thought, okay, I'm going to check my hormones. And I paid for a test where you can check your hormonal levels, and it takes 5 weeks to come back. It gets sent to the US and it comes back. And in those 5 weeks, because I didn't know what to expect, I decided to stop exercise because I didn't know whether it was good or bad. And actually the symptoms got worse, so that was not the right decision. But when I got my test back, it said, actually, yeah, there are a few little issues, but nothing that explains what you're experiencing. So that was actually quite challenging, because I thought, okay, it's not purely my hormones, but something is interfering with my hormones. And obviously, it's happening at a particular point in time, not just throughout my whole cycle. So I decided to try and balance my hormones in a natural way. Right? So if you read up on it, you can interfere with your hormones, and through pills and things like that. But actually, sometimes when you already suffer from an imbalance, it can make things worse, because you're trying to fix it not with a natural, you're not restoring your natural balance. You're kind of putting a layer on top of it. And if that works, absolutely. But I had a feeling that that was actually playing with fire, because the imbalance created was there. I didn't want to create more imbalance. So I got a cream recommended by my mother-in-law, and it was called Anastasia Cream. So it has all these kind of nutrients that support your hormones. So they're not hormones, but they support your hormonal balance. And you just apply it, and I started applying it. And what I found is that it regulated my cycle, but that the symptoms now were always happening. So it regulated my symptoms as well, between the 3rd and the 5th day of my period. So again, science approach, I was like, okay, the hormones are now balanced and the effects are still there. So it's not my hormones. And I have to say, that was quite tricky. I thought, what else can it be? So then I was made aware, again by my mother-in-law, that there has been a link between long COVID and histamines. And histamines and hormones are very closely related, because when your estrogen drops, your histamine rises. And histamine and infection are closely linked. So what I assume happens in my body is that there is a point, they call it an histamine overflow, where, because histamine is like a bucket, and normally your body can process histamine very well, but I think throughout maybe having COVID for so long, there is a problem with how my body maybe absorbs histamine, or maybe with the amount of histamine that's still left in my body because of the infection. And when my estrogen drops and the histamine rises, and it rises at night as well, I would have this kind of histamine overflow reaction, which then, as I mentioned, could linger. And it was always something quite terrible, because I knew it was coming, and it's this kind of, so it wasn't very pleasant at all. So I started taking natural antihistamine, not regular antihistamine, because that can over time make the issue worse, because it kind of tricks the body in thinking you're not making enough histamine. So I went to the natural route, and there's a lot of information out there, but I'll mention the products that I use in the message box below. And I started using them together with the cream to see what happened. And the first month I managed, although I could still feel there were some fluctuations, like my PMS was still there, but it was much more under control. I didn't have this rush at night, so it was the first month where I was like, gosh, I have actually avoid this massive issue. And even if my sleep was disturbed, it didn't get disturbed because of this adrenaline rush. It was maybe a bit unsettled because that's what hormones do as well. They affect your sleep, but it didn't do that. And this is now, I've reached month 3 and I still am stable. So PMS and PMDD, it can be linked to long COVID, and it can be caused by, I would say histamines first and an imbalance in hormones second. So if you look at those areas and address them, then you may be in a good starting point there to see, to control it. And control is what we're after, because that's how you're going to build your confidence back about your own health and your own body. Now, I have put together a little sort of checklist of daily what I used to do, especially, which I believe is what was key in my recovery. And I want to share it with you for free. So if you just sign up, if you just click on the link below and you get it for free, that's no problem. I just want people to understand that, everything is caused by something, right? These things that are happening in your body, they do have an origin. And we need to figure out what the puzzle pieces are and start, getting them together. It's going to be different for everyone. I'm not going, some people will have exactly the same symptoms as I have, and they can just kind of copy what I did. You may have to experience a little bit, but if you do the checklist that I give you, that gives you a really good start. That is my bread and butter of how I started to control my symptoms. If you then also think about, and that will control your hormones quite naturally. If you then use the products that I mentioned or look for similar products, then I think you have a good chance of starting to controlling your symptoms. What I also would advise is to use the same scientific approach, if you like, that I use. So you try it. If you need to, you write in a diary how you feel. What are the, just be very diligent, because there are patterns, and the more you can see the patterns, the better you can figure out exactly how everything is connected for you. So again, if you like this video, please give it a like, because then we can share it to more people. That's how the algorithm works, right? Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Good luck.